A warm welcome to all. So indeed, I'm happy to meet all my friends through online. Ramesh and VP Tiwari and Silvamani, Satish Khanna, Divakar, Neelameham Ramaswamy, Arun Kumar, and other participants. Sorry, I'm not able to spell out all the names. And thanks for your overwhelming response. And today we have more than 75 participants. And during the course of presentation, we will reach 100 participants for this course. So it shows really that your overwhelming response and appreciation to our department. So I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Dr. Neelam Ponte, and she is one of the senior most faculty member of the department, and she's from Uttar Pradesh, and very comfortable with both English, Tamil, and Hindi. And Madam is going to talk about right against exploitation, that is Article 23 and Article 24 of Indian Constitution. So very, very sensitive as well as valuable information you can expect from Dr. Neelam Ponte. To just a few words about Madam, and she joined the Department of Political Science and Public Administration some 20 years before, and she has been teaching political thought, political theory, Indian government and politics, international relations, and she has good experience in guiding the students at the PhD and MPhil level. Madam has an excellent academic record of presenting lectures in Annamalai University and other colleges, and she is one of the sincere, serious, dedicated teacher. So we are very fortunate, madam, and I hope the participants would definitely enjoy your session. And as usual, 1 or 2 minutes, some instruction. So the session will go up to 30 minutes. And any point of time, if we wanted to continue the session, we are going to end the current session. Again, log in with the same user ID and the password. We will admit you all. Then you can interact with the resource person, and the madam is ready. Now it's a time for Dr. Neelam Ponte, madam. You can talk to the audience, and they are waiting to listen your lecture. Thank you for your acceptance, madam. Please.
Good morning. Namaskar. Good morning, Namaskar, and welcome to all my friends and students. Actually, I am very much delighted to be connected across the country with so many people, and that too diverse. It is not just UG students or PG students. You are a diverse population. And today, it is the 6th day of our online course, an introduction on fundamental rights and duties. So I'll be not talking much about what is fundamental right or how many fundamental rights, because basic things you have been already listening from the other resource persons. They have taught you everything, and I think by this time you must be aware of all those things. So my topic, which I have selected, is right against exploitation. So I'll be talking very specific about these two rights only, and I hope that this lecture will be useful to you. So right against exploitation, this right, let me tell you the background of this right, why it is needed. Okay, why there is a need of right against exploitation when we are having right to freedom, right to equality, then why to insert two separate articles regarding this? We know the social structure and economic structure of pre-independence India was like that there were a lot of cases, and I will not say cases, actually it was a tradition. There was a tradition of exploitation. One exploited group was there and so many people were exploited. So it was well thought that there must be a separate article on this particular issue. During the debate, when I'm talking about Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, K.M. Munshi, and K.T. Shah, these three persons, they have included in their draft, in about right against exploitation. Among these three, K.M. Munshi, he wrote in detail whatever we are following now is 70 to 80% idea is given by him. He wrote everything in detail about this article. So this right, as we know, is a very, very significant, important right of fundamental right. And in our part 3, Article 23 and 24 of the Indian Constitution deal with this. So first, what I am planning, I'll just read the text, the real text. No, it is very, very essential that we should know the real words what are used in Constitution. So I'll read those two articles, and after that I'll explain what are the implication of these rights. Just an idea you can have. This I have taken from our NHRC. During 1 month, the cases of violation of human right, which also may be connected with the exploitation against women, there are 438 cases were registered, against children 61, and against bonded labor 55. This is the situation which, when the things are included under fundamental rights. Just imagine if it was not a part of fundamental rights, what will happen? So there are two articles, as I told you before, Article 23 and Article 24. How Article 23 is inserted there? Okay, what is the language? It says that traffic in human beings and begar and other similar forms of forced labor are prohibited, and any contravention of this provision shall be an offense in accordance with law. This is I'm just reading out what is written in our Constitution. And Article 23 has actually two clauses. So clause 1 I read. Now clause 2 says that nothing in this article shall prevent the state from imposing compulsory service for public purposes, and in imposing such services, the state shall not make any discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, class, or any one of them. Article 24, it is about child labor. It says that no child below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in any factory or mine or engaged in any other hazardous employment. This is the language which has been used in our Constitution. Now let me explain. Clause 1. First I will take 23, Article 23 and Clause 1. It has two components. Okay. The Clause 1 itself is having 2 points to be noted. First, traffic in human being, begar, or force, any type of forced labor. Okay. Traffic in human being, begar, and any type of forced labor is prohibited. Clearly it says that no one can do it. And this prohibition, it is not just that the state can't do that. Okay. Even private person, organization can do, are not allowed to do it. Okay. Certain rights are only for the state should not do it. But here, no one, no individual, no person, nobody is allowed to exploit anyone. Nobody is allowed to be involved in traffic human being, to be involved in begar, or to be involved in any kind of forced labor. So this is the first component of the Clause 1. Second is what? It says very clearly, it says that if anybody is opposing this, anybody is, if there is a breach of law, the language is used, contravention of the prohibition. If anybody is trying to violating this, there will be punished. It is treated as an offense. No, it is not an ordinary thing. If we are involved in human trafficking, if someone is involved in human trafficking, forced labor, or begar, then it comes under the category of offense. So when we say offense, it means there is a punishment for it. Okay, for every offense there should be a punishment. There is a punishment for it. And what punishment, what is the real definition of trafficking, all these things, the constitution says, Article 35 says that the parliament should make the law. Okay. And till any new law is made, the existing laws which are in pre-independent area India will continue to exist. Okay. So that is the provision given in Article 23. Now I will try to explain what is the meaning of traffic in human being, the exact meaning. How we can say what is actually traffic in human, what kind of activity. I think we all know that, but anyway, I'll just try to explain it. When human being, like when men, women, children, anybody, human being, when they are treated like goods, they are sold in market, they are bought in market, okay, then it is a human traffic. Any activity, if we buy, the buyer is also violator of the law, the seller is also, any such activity comes under human traffic. And also, suppose if buying and selling is not there, but somebody is, some women, children, or they are forced to immoral activities, what we call the in some kind of sex racket or prostitution, that is also human traffic. There is no buying and selling, but the person is forced to do immoral activity. So that also a part of human traffic. So human traffic is buying and selling and involvement in immoral activity. When law comes, how to decide whether this particular act is coming under human traffic, it is an offense or not? Can we say that it is an offense or not? How to decide? Because law is a very, we all know that we can play with law. So each and every word should be very careful. Offense, how to decide that this is an offense of human traffic? Three categories are given. Three things are there. One is displacement of a person from one community to another. What does it mean? If a person, whether it is a woman, child, or man or boy, anybody, if they are shifted from one house to other house forcibly, okay, not that voluntary, forcibly, they are their place of living is changed, either from one house to other house, from village to another village, or from city to another city, or from one country to another. If forcible employment, this displacement is done, then we can say that it is an offense of human traffic. Another condition is there must be the proof that the trafficked person has been exploited. There should be evidence of that this person or this who is claiming that he has been victim of traffic, he should say that how he has been exploited. So that should be there. And third condition is that the victim, he should have been used like a commodity. Commercialization means, here I mean to say that the people who are involved in sex rackets, who are making, forcing people in prostitution and making money out of it, okay, that all these categories are under the offense of human trafficking. Two points I want to say here. Why slavery is not mentioned in this article? Okay, when a debate was going on at that time, nobody thought that this term should be used. There, to my understanding, one reason is that slavery was, there was begar, there was bandhua mazdoor, what we call bonded labor, but there was no system of slavery in our society. No, slavery is a Western concept, especially whites and blacks. Okay. That's why the slavery term is not used. Though it is not used, the traffic in human being is a quite broad term. It includes everything. Okay. So there is no need of writing the term slavery separately. Another issue is Devadasi. Okay, Devadasi, which has been the practice of Devadasi, which has been used in the temples of some South India, Odisha, somewhere. I think you all know what was. T.K. Shah, he told that this also should be used. They must use the article Devdasi, the term Devdasi, that Devdasi also with Begar and all, Devdasi is also the human trafficking. It should come, it should be protected. But many members of the Constituent Assembly, they said it is a social evil. And we did not to include each and every social evil in the article. Okay. There is no need. So let us use a broader term like human traffic, which will protect everyone, whoever comes. Now, human traffic, why this human traffic is a problem? Because there are so many crimes involved in this. We very often we read in newspaper, trafficking within the country, crime, kidnapping is there, selling of children is there, and many, from the Nepal and Bangladesh, so many young girls, they are bought and sold in Indian markets for the sake of prostitution. And in Middle East, just opposite, we are exporting our children, we are selling our children illegally there for the purpose of sometimes begging or for the purpose of camel race. And one data says, see, these are not official data, these are the reports from media and from the NGOs, that 40% of prostitutes are children. See how pathetic it is, how bad it is that children are involved, children are forced in such a immoral activity. Because in this sex racket, there is a high demand of young girls. So they kidnap children at the age of 5, 4, and they are trained to be a future prostitute. Just one report I saw that nearly 12,000 to 50,000 women and children are trafficked in 1 year. Such a huge number it is. When we have law, when we have constitutional right, that to fundamental rights, then also this condition we are facing. And nearly 1,000 to 1,500 Indian children are smuggled to Saudi, as I told you, during Hajj time, because during Hajj time they are involved in begging. Human trafficking, I think now you are clear what is human trafficking. Now I'll explain what is Begar. Friends of North India who know Hindi, for them this may not be a new term because they understand what is Begar. But other people who do not know Hindi, let me explain for them what is Begar. Begar means involuntary work without payment. Okay. When we are forced to work, and that too there is no wages. It is a fundamental right. What Constitution says, just listen it, that it is not only about the citizens. Any person, citizen, non-citizen, cannot be, no one can be compelled to work without any payment. Okay. But there is exception to this. What exception is there? That for public services, the state can force people to work. Now this guarantee is, it is not just without payment. Okay, Begar also what it includes, one is work without wages. If you are forced to work without any payment, whether the government is forcing or the any private individual or any organization, private sectors, it is Begar. Then work with gross inadequate wages. Suppose payment is given, but it is very low. If 100 rupees has to be paid, only 20 rupees is given. So whether can we call it Begar? Because already the person can say, no, I have paid. So how can you call it Begar? Yes, it is also Begar. Okay. Work with gross inadequate wages also comes under the category of Begar. If we pay someone for their work, not the payment which should be suited for that work, it is Begar. Some conditions are there when initially some payment is promised, but when work is done, the employer says no, no money for this work, citing some reason that your work is not up to the mark, this and that. So not to pay after the completion of work also comes under the category of begar. Three conditions are there: no payment, inadequate payment, and then not to pay after the completion of the work. Like before, we are promising that we'll pay, but after the work is over, we say the quality is not there, we are not satisfied, and we deny to pay to the worker. That is also comes under the category of begar. Here one exception is there. Suppose if I enter with someone in a contract, okay, voluntary contract, the contract is not forced on me, okay, nobody has tried to force me. If I purposely, knowingly, and I should be adult, I should be a person of sound mind, if I enter in a voluntary agreement and to work extra for payment, then we can't say that it is because I'm working extra, it is a begar. Okay? So some exceptions are there for everything. Another question I would like to discuss here: can a person be forced to work with payment? Okay, I kept on telling that without payment, without payment, it is begar. So does it mean that we can force someone? Okay, I'll give you 10,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees. You have to do this work. Can I force this? Anyone? Whether the government can force? Answer is no. Okay, we cannot. That's why this right against exploitation is there. No one can be forced to work against his or her will, even with payment. This I'm talking about in general, not exception. I'll tell you what is. But there are some situations where a person can be forced. Okay. One example I'll give you: in prison, no, there are two types of prisoners, two types of inmates are there, one under trial and convicted. So convicted people who are convicted, that their conviction includes labor, they can't say no. They cannot say that no, I will not work. They have to work. Okay, but with wages, with wages. Even a prisoner is entitled to get the payment for whatever work the person is doing, the prisoner is doing. Okay, so convicted prisoners cannot say no to the job. Another. And second situation is when a person is entering into a contract. One is the government I will take later, that is clause 2. Suppose at individual level, if a very old person, disabled person hires someone, okay, for to take care of that person, and then after some time that person says suddenly without any notice and all that I'm not able to do it. In that condition, that person can ask for that it is a breach of contract. Okay. So case to case it is decided whether breach of contract is applicable or not. Okay. So then also the person can be forced to work. Now I'll come Article 23 clause 2. What it says? Okay. The Constitution itself very clearly says that the state can impose compulsory service. Only one condition is given. What is the condition? That while imposing such force, discrimination should not be made. Discrimination on the basis of religion, race, caste, or class. It should be equal for all. If somebody, and the purpose should be the public service or some kind of social service. People who are involved in defense services, in I'll give you example now. Now we are having the threat of COVID-19. Okay. Now policemen, can they say no to their duty? No, we will not go. We want to be safe. And similarly, doctors, government doctors, the answer is no, because now it is a question of defense of the nation, social service, they have to go, they have to work. The term public service, that's why it is used public service. It's a broad thing. It's a broad term. It includes so many things. Okay. A government employee, especially a government employee, can be deputed to do any kind of job if there is a need. And we cannot say, even a teachers, you forget about the doctor and police, even teachers are involved in so many activities, and it comes under their service rule. They cannot say no, that will not do. I'll give you example of some cases which will prove this. Now, some judgments, let us see, some landmark judgments. I'm not going to go in detail, but just one idea we should have, because the law is very short. The extension of this article has been done by the activities, by the judgments given by Supreme Court and High Courts. The first judge cases of Manipur. Okay, in Manipur, in the village of Manipur, there is a some very interesting type of custom or tradition was there, that in that village, every household, okay, one member has to go and give free labor to the headman. This daily one person will give and contribute free service to headman. It went on. And in 1960, one person has objection. He said, it is a beggar. Even if it is one day, why should I go? And the case was taken. And Supreme Court has given judgment in favor of that person. It says that whether it is a 1 day or 1 hour, does not matter. It is beggar. We cannot say something that it is our tradition, so we are going to follow it. Then another case is Gurudev Singh versus State of Himachal Pradesh, 14 March 1991. This, as I gave you example, it is about the prisoners. That prisoner, he was not paid. He was forced to work, but he was not paid for it. So he objected. He objected, and then the judgment was given that you must pay. The prisoners are entitled for payment, and that money can be sent to their family, or it can be sent as a compensation against whom crime has been done. I think I'm running out of time, so there will be a little break. On the other side, I'll be having some part of some judgments, some name of some cases, and also the Article 24. Okay, so if break is there, please wait to rejoin.
Dear participants, now the time is running out, and
article, it does not say that there should be compulsory education. It has been 21A has been added for the compulsory education. Originally, article just says about that there should not be any child labor. And it is not that only after independence. In 1906, way back, Gopal Krishna Gokhale has requested British government to stop child labor, to give free education to all children. But as we know, the British government was least bothered to listen to the Congress. So when Constituent Assembly was set up, everybody was very clear. There was no second thought. Okay, there was no second thought. Everybody was very clear that there should be a fundamental law which will abolish the child labor. So it's very interesting to see the words of Article 24. No child below the age of 14 years shall be employed in any factory or mine or engaged in any other hazardous employment. They are specifying the type of employment, that in this some kind of dangerous work, children should not be used. They should not be employed, and that too age has been up to 14 or below 14. They cannot be. So there is no absolute ban on child labor in this article. According to this article, there is no absolute ban on child labor. Why this? Seeing the condition of India, we know that in every houses, every poor, once their children attain the age of 8 or 9 years, they want them to earn. So the framers of the Constitution knew very well that absolute ban may not be possible. So how to understand this article? One thing, that it is only up to 14 years and below 14 years. It means somebody 16, 17, 18, they can be employed in even in dangerous work. But there is now law, okay, which has changed this situation. Secondly, even the children who are of 14 age or below 14 age, they can be employed in harmless work. Okay. So employment is not completely prohibited in this article. Okay, in this article 24. Now, article 24, it is said that we should not read it alone. It should be read with article 39. Okay, what is article 39? It is about directive principle of the state. It has two, article 39E and F. Okay, E and F, it says, article 39E says that it is the obligation of the state, it is the duty of the state to see that health and strength of the workers, men and women, and the tender age of children are not abused. It means allot them work according to the strength. Do not give excess work which is beyond their physical and mental ability. That kind of. And due to economic necessity, because the person wants money, nobody should be forced to do such work which he or she is not capable of doing. It is not beyond their capacity. It is in directive principle of the state. And article 39F says that children, it is only for the children, that it is right of every children. The state should see that the children are given freedom, they should live with dignity, they should have right to education, and that's why we are having now article 21A, right to education, compulsory education. So if I like to summarize this article 24, it prohibits the employment of children below 14 years of age in hazardous work. It should be read with article 39E and F, which ensures safety and healthy life of children, and it imposes duty on the state to ensure that children are not abused. They are not forced to do certain type of work. And also it allows children in harmless work. Now, what judgments are given in this? Again, the same Asiad project, in that children were involved in construction work. Now the question came whether construction work is dangerous or not. The petitioner, they said that construction work is also not safe. Children must not be used there. And the argument on the opposite side was given that the Employment of Children Act 1938 is not having any in the list that construction work is hazardous. It was not mentioned. Then the court says that Article 24 itself empowers to decide that construction work is dangerous and children must not be used in this kind of activity. Next case is Bandhua Mukti Morcha versus Union of India and others. Here in this case is about Haryana. In Haryana, some bonded labor were working in the stone quarries, and in a very pathetic condition they were living, okay, as a bonded labor. The Supreme Court gave order that they should be, it is the responsibility of the state to release them, and only releasing is not sufficient. but also they must be rehabilitated. Because if they are pushed to poverty, again they will be exploited. Poverty is one of the big reason for exploitation. Our economic needs, our starvation, the fear of starvation pushes us towards any kind of exploitation. Next judgment is given in the laborers working on Salal Hydro project versus fate of Jammu and Kashmir and others. This was the project taken by the government. So if dam, the construction of dam and all, it takes years together. So the question was raised that people who are living there, the construction worker, they are not allowed to move somewhere else. They live near the construction site. What about their children? Do they have health facilities? Do they have schooling? So the court said that all the children of these construction workers must be provided amenities for schooling. So this is another law which has been passed to strengthen Article 24. Very famous cases of MC Mehta versus state of Tamil Nadu. In this, one PIL was filed against the practices of employment of children in the match and fireworks and explosive factories. In Tamil Nadu, Sivakasi is very famous for crackers, and we know that it exports crackers throughout the world. So many children are employed there. Then Supreme Court has given a long list. If you read the judgment, there are so many instructions given, and it said that immediately it should be stopped. Children cannot be taken as employer in such factories. Another case is regarding it is also of Tamil Nadu only, tobacco manufacturing. You might have seen that in BD factories, so many children are there. Mostly children are there. Not so many, I will say mostly children, even now. So whether BD making is a safe work or unsafe work? Government said yes, it is unsafe work. It is not good for children. So the children, they must be either immediately you close, or if immediately withdrawing children is not possible, phase wise you withdraw them, and nearly 3 years time, within the 3 years time, all the children must be withdrawn from the work of BD making. And lastly, very latest, Kailash Satyarthis Association Bachpan Bachao Andolan versus Union of India, 18 April 2011. So we all go to circus, entertainment industry. There we see small kids playing, showing us so many tricks and ways. So Kailash Satyarthi has done so much work, social work with these kids. So his on behalf of his association, case was taken and said that nobody talking about entertainment industry. What about the children who are working in that industry? Because circus, they never get proper education. They are tortured. There is less food, no hygiene. What about them? So Supreme Court again gave the ruling that there should not be, children must not be forced in this job, and if they are used, there should be, in circus, many times consent of parent is there. Parent, they send their children to to perform those activities, and they get money. So the Supreme Court said that it should not be done, and if children are there, proper care must be given to these kids. What other acts have been passed so far? The Factory Act 1948, the Mine Act 1952, the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act. This is the landmark which has been amended in 2016. In 2016, they said that all the children who are either 14 or below 14, they must not be hired for any kind of job, no job for them. And also, the children who are up to 18 age, nobody can be employed in any dangerous work. Okay. That's why it is very, we say it is a landmark law. But immediately in 2017, one amendment was done that children who belong to the family of some artisans, you know, like they know some art, the family is involved in some traditional job, those children can be employed because it's a training. They learn the job of their family, so they are allowed to work. So regarding this Article 24, the situation is quite critical for a country like India. Many people argue, especially the parents and poor people, they argue in favor of child labor. They say we have to survive, and our children, if they bring money home, if they earn, it is our choice. We are making them to work, so the government must not interfere. But situation has quite changed a lot, because after that free schooling, free noon meal, so many parents are willing to send to their children to the school and avoiding to send them for work. So this is the to summarize, the right against exploitation. It is really, I will say, a lifeline for the oppressed class. I hope you might have understood what is Article 23, what is Article 24. It would have been better if I would have explained you all the laws, but time will not allow. So thank you very much for listening. Namaskar.
Thank you, Professor Neelam Pandey, Madam, for your wonderful lecture. And I hope the participants would have benefited by your lecture. And with examples and cases, you have explained the topic in very detailed manner. Now the session is open for discussion. So the participants who have been keenly observing the lecture, now it is open for them to get clarification from the resource person. First, I just unmute Divakara. Divakara. Please, unmute. Please unmute. Can you please unmute Ganesh Prabhu? Ganesh Prabhu, you are unmuted now. Now you can proceed with your question from that person.
Yes, sir. Okay. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Is it audible, ma'am?
Yeah.
The session is very informative, ma'am. I like to question in child labor, ma'am.
Yeah.
You said government had amended in such a way that child belonging to a particular family who are doing art are allowed.
Sorry, please repeat. The government is?
Government has amended in such a way that child belonging to a particular family who is employed in a particular work, like artistics, they are allowed.
Yeah.
How about a child employed in their own businesses of parents in bakery, hotels?
No, okay. It depends. It depends on what kind of business. See, artisan is totally different thing. For example, blacksmith, no, he has to train his child in that work. Okay, but business, business, what type of business? It all depends on this. They are not. The article is not for the business. Okay, it's very clear. It is article, not it's a law. Okay. It is not, it will not allow. It all depends on what type of business, whether the business is based on artisan or something like that, then it will be allowed. So case to case decision will be taken.
Whether we can take it as a skill development, not about a labor.
Yeah. It is actually, yes.
We can take
development.
like that.
Yeah, it is very well said. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Finish
Thank you
I
very
want
much.
to
Thank you. Thank you.
I wish to add some more information on this. If child is working with the parent, the health and the physical growth is not affected due to the employment in the parent's business, then it can be, no, it cannot be called as considered as child labor. If the education of the child or the physical or mental growth of the child
growth
is not
is not.
affected by the employment of the parent's business, it can be called as a normal thing, not considered as a child labor. Okay, thank you, Mr. Prabhu. Now I just want to mute Rajalakshmi Walk. Please unmute. Rajalakshmi Walk, now you can proceed and ask the question from the first. No response to Rajalakshmi. Now please unmute.
I think Rajlakshmi was there, sir. You can.
Anak? Anak, you can proceed.
What is his name?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you.
Rajlakshmi.
It was a lovely session.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm from Pune actually. I just wanted to know that there are small children who are employed in making these, small businesses which are on the roadside.
Yeah.
Bale and sandwiches and things like that.
Mm.
So, how will that fit in?
It is illegal. It is child labor, very much. It is very much
Yes.
under the category of child labor. Okay. So
Yes.
we should not encourage such thing. But anyway, some need is on that side also. No, they need money. We belong to a poor
Yes.
country, so these things are happening. But legally, it is a
but
child
also
labor.
It could be that. Is it that it could be that there are they are employed only for 4 to 5 hours? So, if that is quite allowed.
No, actually, if we legal terms, it is a labor. Okay. But other than humanitarian grounds and all, that's why people ignore it. No, nobody is going and complaining it unless and until it is
Right.
harmless. Nobody will try like to stop somebody's income, isn't it? We are not going to
Yes.
feed them. So they are working, they are earning. Why should I think personally I feel there is a need to bring some amendment. No, where force is not employed. Then children must be allowed, if their education is not affected, if their health is not affected, they are not begging, no, they are working. So it's my personal view that they must be allowed. Okay.
Very true. Very true. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Children or glass industry, banking industry, these industries all and you can find still employed in mechanical shops, tea shops. These are not all the unlimited sector. Up to recent time, these unlimited sector does not come under the purview of the law. Now it has come under the purview of the law. They are also called child labor. The employees.
It's not allowed, yeah.
Yes.
Now
thank you.
I choose to unmute again Rajalakshmi Walk. Now,
Who, sir?
Rajalakshmi.
Rajalakshmi, madam, only just now she asked. No?
Okay, right. Now Sanjeev
Sanjeev
Sarkar.
Sarkar. Okay.
Sanjeev Sarkar. Or you don't know? Sanjeev Sarkar. No response. Now you just unmute Harshit Sarkar. Harshit Sarkar. Harshit Sarkar.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, my question is that if a person earlier agreed to work on a low
Yeah.
wage and later he refuses to work and then he goes to the court, that this is a begar. So is that a valid one? Ki it is regarded as begar or not?
Surely, the first step is wrong. The contract itself is on the wrong side. No? You cannot make a contract with a person on inadequate wages. So if such cases are taken in the court, immediately the judgment will be in favor of the worker only, because the contract itself is wrong. Beginning itself is wrong. Okay. So because sometimes due to economic conditions, people agree to work. Okay. It means we are
Yes, yes.
forcing them to work. Okay. So it's a Begar.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I request you to unmute Anjun Shah.
Hello.
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 Yes.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good
Ma'am.
morning. Yeah.
Very informative session, ma'am.
Thank
But
you.
I have one query.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anjum Sheikh.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have one query.
Hmm.
Devdasi Pratha can be
Yes.
prohibited under Article 23?
Ji. It can be very much because it comes under like a forced labor. Okay. If even there are cases where Devdasis are used as sexual abuses there, no? Okay. So it comes under immoral activity also, and also it comes under the Begar. So it can be. That's why they have not used the term Devdasi, because Krishnamachari, he said, unnecessary, why should we bring a blot to the name of the country using every social evil in the constitution. So that's why. But Devdasi also can be challenged in the court. Okay. Anything else, ma'am? Hello?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Unmute Anak. Anak. Okay, no response. Is there any participant wants to ask questions? We have almost 5 more weeks only. So if any participant wants to ask questions, you can send the sign page. Okay, thank you. Madam Dilapane, for a wonderful lecture. Sharing your valuable time with us. Madam is one of the serious and the sincere and the senior most faculty members in the Department of Political Science and University. And she has been instrumental in organizing the seminar conference in the Department of Political Science and University. And I think the participants would have got much insight on the topic, a very vital topic, which they have chosen now, very vital and relevant. So the participants might have enjoyed the session, and once again, I thank the first person and thank the department and the Registrar Vice Chancellor for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you once again. Thank you all. And we meet you all tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you very much.